Welcome to the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul V. Perez, and on this podcast I work on improving myself while having fun along the way, and I do so by documenting my life and interests. Welcome back to the podcast. In June, didn't really put out much content. Just put out a couple of videos. Actually, it was one video, and then put out another video recently. The first one being a vlog that I filmed around my neighborhood in and around New York City, and the second one being some artwork that I've been working on for the last couple of months. Now we are back and have some podcast content lined up, and in this episode we're going to be talking about a book, my biggest takeaways from this particular book. That book being Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, the subheadline being Natural Treatment for Angina, Atherosclerosis, High Blood Pressure, Arrhythmia, Stroke, Peripheral Vascular Disease, and Heart Attack. And this book is by Dr. Natasha Campbell-Mcbride, MD. And as always, please support this podcast by doing any or all of your Amazon shopping with the link provided in the show notes for this episode. Or if this information makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you think, please consider sending a tip. And I leave links for that in the show notes as well. And as always, I want to hear what you have to say. Please do so in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this, there's a link once again in the show notes. It'll zap you over to the blog and you can leave your comments and thoughts there. This book plays into my food journey where I've changed diets often in my life, going from vegan to eating meat, and I'm still even doing that to this day. A few years ago when my father passed away, one of my big motivations was to go vegan because I really was a believer that in terms of him eating animal foods is what caused him to have multiple heart attacks over the years. But when I reflect back, he lived a very stressed life, and it was like almost like a self-imposed stress. So I think that's kind of was a big factor of possibly why he had those strokes. This is me just completely guessing. And that really put the fear in me to go vegan, have no animal foods. But with reading this book, it has actually really changed that view, and it's shown me that I've been starving my brain and other things, other parts of my body of cholesterol by not having cholesterol. And I would punish myself when I would be on a strictly vegan diet. Like if one day I wanted to have ice cream or if I wanted to have pizza, I would just like really be very harsh on myself. And it would just break my confidence, and it would lead into other bad patterns. Reading this book kind of lifted a weight off my chest. Just going back to that point of like punishing myself when it would come to eating foods outside of a vegan diet, because I thought that would be the most heart-healthy diet. If I knew I was about to have like some pizza or something, like I would start getting a pain in my chest. I think this is all like from like some self-imposed hysteria that I put on myself. Like I said, after reading this particular book, it's made me go a little bit easier on myself. And I find myself that when I have now animal foods, which I don't have every day, but when I have it, I feel much more satisfied with dinner. But the only bad thing on the flip side is I've definitely started to gain weight again. From the weight that I had before to the weight that I have now. And it hasn't been that big of a difference, but it's been at least a 10 to 15 pound difference depending on the day. Let's go ahead and get into some of my biggest takeaways from Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. This is a big quote here, and these are on pages 27 going on to 28. Scientific studies have conclusively demonstrated that cholesterol from food has virtually no effect on the level of your blood cholesterol. Why? Because cholesterol is such an essential part of our human physiology that the body has very efficient mechanisms to keep blood cholesterol at a certain level. When we eat more cholesterol, the body produces less. When we eat less cholesterol, the body produces more. As a raw material for making cholesterol, the body can use carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, which means that your pasta and bread can be used for making cholesterol in the body. It has been estimated that in an average person, about 85% of blood cholesterol is produced by the body, while only 15% comes from food. So even if you religiously follow a completely cholesterol-free diet, you will still have a lot of cholesterol in your body. However, cholesterol-lowering drugs are a completely different matter. They interfere with the body's ability to produce cholesterol, and hence they do reduce the amount of cholesterol available for the body to use. If we do not take cholesterol-lowering drugs, most of us don't have to worry about cholesterol. However, there are people whose bodies, for various reasons, are unable to produce enough cholesterol. These people are prone to emotional instability and behavioral problems. Low blood cholesterol has been routinely recorded in criminals who have committed murder and other violent crimes, people with aggressive and violent personalities, people prone to suicide, and people with aggressive social behavior and low self-control. This is Google's definition of the endothelial cells. It's the main type of cell found in the inside lining of blood vessels, lymph vessels, and the heart. And what is the function of the endothelial cells? Once again, this is Google's definition. The endothelium is a thin membrane that lines the inside of the heart and blood vessels. Endothelial cells release substances that control vascular relaxation and contraction, as well as enzymes that control blood clotting, immune function, and platelet adhesion. Now, what is atherosclerosis? This is Google's definition once again. It's a disease of the arteries characterized by the deposition of plaques of fatty material on their inner walls. And once again, Google's definition here. Atherosclerosis is a thickening or hardening of the arteries caused by buildup of plaque in the inner lining of an artery. Risk factors include high cholesterol and triglyceride levels, high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, obesity, and physical activity, and eating saturated fats. Now, in the chapter, What Causes Atherosclerosis, Dr. McBride goes a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to cover in this particular episode, but I do recommend you buy the book, and you can do that through the Amazon link in the show notes for this episode. But these are some of the introductions to this particular chapter of what she says causes atherosclerosis, and it's pretty fascinating. I'm just going to run down the introductions once again of the paragraphs and then go into it a little bit. First and foremost, she says man-made chemicals, and this comes in the form of personal care products, detergents, dishwashing soap, smoking, prescription drugs, where it's not saying that every single chemical inside these products is harmful, but there are chemicals in there that can be. An example being deodorant. Like, I make sure to buy aluminum-free deodorant because I read in a study ages ago that aluminum can give Alzheimer's inside deodorant. So she says that this being an example can go ahead and harm the endothelial cells and cause atherosclerosis. When she says things like detergents, like soap, for the laundry kind of thing, that these chemicals don't get exactly washed off when you finish doing your laundry. So chemicals that stay in your clothes, that let's say are on your bed sheets, on your towels, that chemicals that are kind of like stored in there from the detergent can cause atherosclerosis. When she says, obviously smoking has a bunch of harmful carcinogenic chemicals inside of it. I mean, that doesn't need to be really go in depth because it's kind of common knowledge. Prescription drugs, the active ingredient can be the active ingredient that is supposed to do whatever the job, its job is, like whatever that prescription drug is supposed to do, but then that there's other chemicals inside that prescription drug that can be harmful as well. Things in lotions, like I make sure that when I buy lotions, they are free of parabens, they're free of SLS, things of this nature. Other things that she says, other introductions to other paragraphs in this particular chapter are EMF exposure, like the microwave, like the cell phone. I will tell you that I personally have stopped using my microwave and have gotten a steam pot that a coworker recommended, and it's basically just a 2-level pot with a lid, and that top pot has holes in it, so the bottom pot you just boil the water and it kind of steams the food from there. I've stopped using the microwave since that. I've purchased that, and I just use it as a storage place to hold clean dishes. So definitely EMF exposure is one of them. Going down the other introductions, she mentions industrial pollution, stuff in the air, I'm showing it's being spit out by factories, stuff like that. Pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. I'm sure this is like going towards the GMO and the foods and the chemicals that are sprayed on the foods. Chlorine, fluoride, nitrates in the drinking water. So she talks about to not really swim in swimming pools often. Unfortunately, I kind of swim in a swimming pool once a week. But the chlorine in the water, she says, is very bad. It can cause atherosclerosis. I have a thyroid issue. I have a hypothyroidism, and the fluoride hurts my thyroid. So I, at home, have like filters, a water filter and a shower filter. I don't have a filter for my sink, my bathroom sink, but I do for my cooking water and drinking water in the kitchen, and also, like I said, a filter for the shower water, and it's to prevent the fluoride. Like I said, I have a thyroid issue. I don't want to continue to damage my thyroid, so I try to avoid drinking fluoridated water or store water or anything like that. Also, processed foods and flavorings, preservatives, abnormalities in gut flora, get those probiotics in, various infectious microbes, and this makes me think possibly of like COVID or colds, things of this nature, nutritional deficiencies, and also lack of exercise and lack of sun exposure, just simply getting outside, moving your body, and just getting some vitamin D from the sun. And she makes a case. Like I said, these are all introductions to paragraphs where she goes further in depth, and these all cause atherosclerosis. She breaks down that these are the things that cause atherosclerosis, and not the popular talking point of it just being high cholesterol. As a matter of fact, she says in this book, when the cholesterol is high, that means it's fighting some kind of infection inside your body. My cholesterol is always kind of high. My bad cholesterol is kind of high. It's like a little bit under 300, my cholesterol count. And I'm thinking now, after reading this book, it's because of my hypothyroidism that my cholesterol just tends to be high on a regular basis. Even if I go completely vegan and avoid the saturated fats and oils, it's still going to be somewhat elevated. So those are my biggest takeaways from Dr. Natasha Campbell-Mcbride's book, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. You can support both the author and myself by buying this book through the affiliate link in the show notes for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.